Alrighty, and we are live. So welcome everybody to the third episode of Coaster News Roundup. I am your host, Carrick from Coaster Hour, and this is the first episode that's ever happened in live stream format. So this is going to be kind of new for this series, but this stream will work very similarly to the Coaster Time viewer call-in episodes, if you remember those. They're going to be done more as part of the Coaster News Roundup because we're going to go through a lot of the news, and that's become sort of the main focus, so that's why that's sort of transferred to here. But that's going to be how that's going to go. And for those of you who haven't watched those, how this basically works is I'll go through the news toward the beginning here, go through all the news segments with like a slideshow. And then after I go through the news with the slideshow, I'll be bringing people on who want to come on and call. So that's going to be how that is going to work. But as we're waiting for the first few people to get in here, I'll be doing a beginning of stream Q&A, 10 minutes like I normally would for a Coaster Time. So for anyone that has any questions, whether it relates to coasters or even the news, if you have specific questions about specific things, just ask it now. And yeah, that'll pretty much be how this goes. I'll be putting the StreamYard link in the chat pinned once we get closer to me actually bringing people on for the viewer call-in segment. But if you want to get a head start, that the link is in the description, so there is that as well. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be that. And so like I said, Q&A for now, so ask any questions you have. Opinions on Phantom's Revenge. I have not written it yet. It is probably a top, I don't know if I would go as far as to say a top 10 bucket list coaster in the US. It probably is, though. If it's not, it's like right there. But it's definitely one of my most anticipated coasters to ride in the future. I'm a big fan of Superman El Último Escape at Six Flags Mexico. Obviously, Phantom's Revenge is a very different ride, but it is a Morgan, and it's just got such a cool history to it. So, I mean, there's a lot to like with Phantom's Revenge. The second drop is supposed to be legendary, and then the final few hills are supposed to be incredible. So, I can't wait to ride it whenever I get the chance. But we'll see when that is. Graduated from college, but struggling to find any work. Yeah, that's seems like a difficult time for that right now. Just in general, definitely seems to be the talk I've heard. Have I been to Lakemont? I wish. I want to get there someday. It's so remote. I'm in California, and so how I'm gonna get there is gonna be tricky. I do hope that I can get there at some point. Probably not super soon, but definitely a destination to go to eventually. Obviously, I've Leap the Dips there and Starliner, which look like some pretty cool vintage coasters. But because of that, I don't have too many thoughts on it. I do think it looks really interesting and is a park that we don't really hear a lot in terms of getting talked about. And I think part of that is that for so many people, it's just a very hard place to get to. So I'll have to check it out at some point. Do I see the queue line, and did I see the queue line and station setup being changed after Dragster's incident? Oh, okay, so where the sort of launch track to sort of prevent the accident that happened last time. I think they'll probably do something. I don't know if it'll be they actually reroute the sort of queue line and station, or if they put up a roof or tarps or something to get the job done. But I certainly could see something being done there. I do think that'll probably happen. Because a reimagined version of the ride isn't going to change the potential problem that could arise again, because that was a thing fell off the train. So, yeah, I think that is definitely very possible, if not likely, that we will see a queue line or station change, whether that's in a literal setup, how the layout is, or just with a tarp or something like that. But certainly the layout and setup could be changed. The best coaster from the year 3000 BC. God, I don't... yeah. Steel Vengeance. I have ridden that. It is my number 3 overall coaster. It is a phenomenal ride. I rode it in 2019 when I actually heard it was running worse than usual, so that just shows how good it was. And I mean, what is there to say that hasn't already been said? It's an absolute airtime machine. It's absolutely relentless from start to finish. No element is filler. It seems like every element has a purpose, and it is just a phenomenal ride. Though I will say that there isn't really a single like moment that I think is like absolutely like top tier. There's some really good moments. Like my favorite moment on Steel Vengeance, if you're just talking about one element, is actually the sort of there's this sort of like off-axis hill heading into the structure in the second half. I think that one is really fantastic. I know a lot of people like to choose the first large sort of outer bank, but I like the sort of off-axis hill heading into the structure. So I will say that, but it is still absolutely amazing. And night rides are actually very good on it, pretty underrated in that sense. I don't hear a lot of people talk about it. It's not like pitch black or anything like that, but just with like kind of the lights, and you know, it is darker, so it's just a pretty fun experience. First coaster of 2023 for me, I have no idea. If it's gonna be first new one, there's a pretty good shot that it's gonna be at Kentucky Kingdom if I don't end up finding any new credits around here in California, which is very possible just because there isn't a whole lot left for me to do that's super close by. And if it ended up being at Kentucky Kingdom, it probably would be Lightning Run. So yeah, I think that's possible, which by the way, I don't know if I mentioned that, but I am doing Hollywood Nights this year. And because of that, I'm going to be going to Kentucky Kingdom for the first time. So that is obviously very exciting. Have I been to Six Flags Discovery Kingdom? Yes. Yes, I have. I've been there multiple times. I don't even know where it is, but I have these complimentary tickets from the last time I went. That can tell you about like how well the park was operated that day. It was just multiple closed rides. And a lot of frustration, which has really been the case for my last 2 visits. I'm not the biggest fan of that park. They obviously have some great coasters. Joker is underrated. I really enjoy it. And it is my least favorite iBox coaster I've done so far, but I think if I ride some of the other ones, it won't be for much longer. And it's not by that much, but it has a phenomenal first drop. And the airtime on it is a lot better than I think people give it credit for. And then Medusa is also fantastic. Man, I have something in my I have something in my throat. Not a good time for that. Apologies there. But Medusa is really good. Sadly, it was closed my last visit, so that's unfortunate. Wow, that's not good. But yeah, Medusa, that's one of my favorite B&M floorless I've done. Some really good elements on it. The first drop's fantastic. I like Superman Ultimate Flight. It's the only Premier Ride Skyrocket 2 I've done, but I think that model is underrated and that ride is good. I have not done Flash yet. I hope to get it before it eventually closes in the future, if it ever reopens in the first place. But they have some good rides. Otherwise, I just do not really like the park. It's definitely not one of my favorites. I usually recommend people go to Great America instead. You're asking because you're going to see your cousin in California and he is an hour away from Great America. Yeah, I would honestly recommend Great America over Discovery Kingdom, especially because Great America is on a limited, like, I don't know how, like, obviously California, for a lot of people, if you live in even anywhere from the middle to the east coast of the US, it's very far away. But Great America, I mean, if you're not going to be coming back to California for a while, this is probably your only opportunity. So that's even more reason why I recommend for people, if they have to choose between Great America or Discovery Kingdom, just to go with Great America. Busch Gardens Tampa versus Busch Gardens Williamsburg. I've been to neither. It's a tough choice because I both have their strengths. I hear that Busch Gardens Williamsburg is sort of the better overall park, and in some ways you could even debate their coaster collection is perhaps a little more well-rounded, although actually both of them are pretty good in that regard. But I think Busch Gardens Tampa has the better, like, sort of top-tier coasters. But they're still pretty different parks because Tampa's more of a zoo, Busch Gardens Williamsburg's more about the European theming. I think I'll take Tampa, but I would need to visit both to determine that. Yes, Voyage. I've already done it in its normal state during early July last year, and so I'm excited to check it out during Hollywood Nights. All right, I'll answer questions up until Arrow Thrills' last question. Pantheon or Gwazi? Iron Gwazi. I know in my anticipated video, I think I put Pantheon over Iron Gwazi before either of them opened. I was dead wrong on that. I don't really think I'm definitely more excited to ride Iron Gwazi, and I think it's probably the better ride. Not even probably. It's very likely to be. So, you wish that Patriot was still a B&M stand-up coaster because you're trying to get a rare coaster credit. I already wrote a B&M Floralist, Rougarou. Yeah, I did not like Patriot as a stand-up. I wrote it as Vortex. It was not good. That being said, Patriot is just really mediocre, so I guess I can understand that for sure. But man, when it was Vortex, I don't know what it was. I mean, it's not that I don't like stand-up coasters. Maybe the trains weren't in the best shape because I did ride it like toward the end of its time. I'm not sure what the deal was, but it was a lot rougher as Vortex. I don't really know how to explain that one, but that just was the case when I rode it. So that's my opinion on Vortex to Patriot, I guess. Patriot is like solid, but it's nothing too crazy. Alrighty, so next we'll move on to the news, which is obviously the main part of this. And actually, I need to pull up the slides. So for this episode, which is, like, it's a third episode, it's so weird because usually it's coaster time I'm doing, and this is technically a whole different thing. But yeah, let's get into it. There's quite a bit. I'll try to get through it in a relatively quickly manner. Some segments and some topics I'll be discussing more in depth, and other ones I will be more sort of talking more about if I feel they're more interesting. But with that said, here we go. Alrighty, so here is the news, and we start with our ride openings. We had Gold Mine Train at I'm too low here. All right, here we go. Happy Valley Shenzhen in China, that opened. That is a Golden Horse Mine Train. But the biggest sort of ride opening we have, and actually we also have Pirate River Quest at Legoland, Florida. But the biggest ride opening has to be Mission Ferrari at Ferrari World, Abu Dhabi. This coaster was originally scheduled to open in 2015. Pretty crazy. I looked back through the forums. It was actually supposed to open that year. Pretty crazy, but hey, it finally opened. And if you want to watch the POV, there is one that is out now, and the ride looks absolutely fantastic. So I think it was I can understand why it took so long because I watched the POV. The ride looks incredible. So that is definitely really nice to see that it was finally able to open, and it looks really cool. So that is that for Mission Ferrari. And then we also have a few opening dates. So Toutatis, which is at Parc Astérix in France, that is opening on April 8th. TRON Lightcycle Run at Magic Kingdom will be opening on April 4th. And then you have Uncharted at PortAventura, which has more of an opening time frame. It is supposed to open in June of 2023, which I guess we're already here. So June of this year. And then I put this under opening dates, though it is sort of a larger discussion. And that is Top Thrill Dragster. I just put Top Thrill Dragster 2.0 because I know that's not going to be the actual name, but you get the idea. That is going to be coming back to Cedar Point in 2024. Some people thought this might end up being a 2023 project. I thought that idea was pretty ridiculous from the get-go. So now we have confirmation. It is going to be returning in 2024 in a new form, I suppose. We'll see what that ends up looking like. Actually, if anyone in the chat has any sort of guesses, let me know. I do believe we are going to be seeing Zamperla working on this. At this point, there just seems to be too many signs pointing to that. So I think Zamperla is definitely going to be involved with the reimagining of Top Thrill Dragster. I'm not so sure that we're going to be seeing any crazy layout changes, but you never know. But I do think at this point that it's very likely we'll see Zamperla working on this new version of the ride. Next, we have our ride delays, both from the same park and are in the same picture. Mad Ramp Peak, which is the Dynamic Attractions dual-powered coaster. That has been delayed to January or February. It was talked about in an interview. It was supposed to open last year, but it got delayed. And in the interview, the person said it would be opening in the next month. The interview was done in January, so it's a little unclear if he meant January or February, but that is the plan there. And then the SFX coaster is to open in 2024 or 2025. This is at Genting SkyWorlds in Malaysia. And that also came from the interview that was posted a few days ago from the that was interviewing the vice president of the park, or vice president of a certain sort of level. But yeah, 2024 or 2025, because he said it would open in the next year or two. So there you go. Next, we have our construction updates. We got a lot. The Pescetti Bowl coaster at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, walls are up. At Chessington, a Vekoma car has been spotted. You can look in the description if you want to see pictures. It's unclear if this is something related to their suspended coaster or for some new project in the future, but probably just for relating to Vampire, because they did put Vekoma trains on there. You do have Six Flags Great Adventure and Great America. B&M parts have been shipped. For Great Adventure, it is believed to be for the upcoming fourth Nitro train, is what I believe I saw was the speculation. And for Great America, I couldn't quite look into it as far, but I believe that would also be for an additional Raging Bull train. That's the speculation with those shipments. And then Big Bear Mountain has had some track work get completed. It is complete. The track work is completed for Big Bear Mountain at Dollywood. We also have several other construction updates. The Vekoma Junior coaster, which that picture on the top left is just for reference. That's going to be the model. Going to Vedanta World in Mexico. That is a new theme park going to Mexico. Track work has been completed. But along with that, you also have Zambezi Zinger at Worlds of Fun. Track is on site, as you can see on the bottom left. On the top right, we have the LSM launch coaster at P&E Playland. Track is on site there. And for Arctic Rescue at SeaWorld San Diego, the track work has been complete. So there you go. And then for our last little bit of construction, we actually have a few of these. You could technically call this first one sort of a new coaster, and I could have excluded it or included it as its own segment, but I thought it was best put here. The Zero Flitzer coaster from Wiener Prater, for those who were familiar with that, called Racing. It closed a few years ago. It's actually being relocated to Racing. It was actually at Bakken, not Wiener Prater. It's going to a park in Austria called Bomischer Prater. I'm not sure exactly what it is, or I don't know much about it, but it's going there. So that's going to be a new coaster coming, and track has gone on site there. You also have Snoopy's Racing Railway at Canada's Wonderland. Track is on site there. And then Voltron at Europa Park. Track has also arrived on site, which you can see there on the right. Next, you have your ride closures. There's a lot of them here. Bonzai Pipelines at Six Flags America has closed for good. Demolition permits were filed, and that's pretty much what's going on there. It does seem like they are probably going to be, I believe it was stated that it is going to be replaced by another attraction, so there's that to look forward to. Mock Tower at Busch Gardens Williamsburg has officially closed for good. That happened a little over a week ago. Joyland Amusement Park in Texas is closing for good because the buyers who had bought it a few months ago or were supposed to have backed out. So it is unfortunately gone for good. That is in Texas. And then the Ultimate, it's already been on here and it's already been mostly confirmed to be getting removed, but it has gotten like full, like non, like sort of disputable proof that it is going to be closing because the park has officially released a statement and has announced that it is indeed closing for good. So there you go. And we have even more Rocky Express at Thorpe Park. This was a beloved sort of classic flat ride. It is getting removed. The KidZone area at Universal Studios Florida has closed for good. That just happened in the last week. Viking at Energylandia, which is their spinning coaster, has been put up for sale, and I put a sort of like asterisk next to it because supposedly it has been put up for sale before. It is listed on a website as for sale. But it is possible that perhaps if it doesn't sell, maybe it continues to operate at the park because supposedly there has been interest to sell it in the past few years and it hasn't happened. But if it is indeed, since it has been listed, I decided to put it on here, but that's one that we'll have to wait and see if it's officially gone for good. And then the merry-go-round at Fuji-Q Highland, it has closed for good. The park announced a few days ago with a tribute post on their social media. And then the last two closures are from P&E Playland. Drop Zone, which is a sky coaster, is closing for good. And then Revelation, which is a Gravity Works booster, is also closing for good. That was announced with the post that also talked about the track going on site at P&E Playland on their social media pages. So, yep, there you have it. Next, we have our ride repaints. Only one, Go Bananas at Wild Adventures. Usually in these sort of Coaster News Roundup episodes, I'll give them a score, but I'm going to just kind of zoom past these for now. I think the color scheme looks good, but a little bit of a weird color choice for a ride that is themed to monkeys and bananas. Green and blue is not the first thing I think of, but the quality of the paint looks good, and I like how it looks. I just think it's a weird fit for the name and theme. We also have a train reveal, at least a little bit of it. Dark Coaster at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. They posted a little reel showing the trains. I think the color looks really nice, but the concept art showed a little more detail on the front of them, and we don't see it here, so I question if it like fit, if the full like sort of decoration job is complete, but I do like the sort of purplish red color it has. And then we also have our name reveals. That's a good point for Go Bananas. It does match the Twisted Typhoon. And we have some name reveals, so I'm going to butcher this so badly. Verrücktwort at Rostiland in Germany. That is their shuttle coaster they're getting, family shuttle coaster. The name is actually, it is a combination of two German words in Verrückt, which means crazy, and Rückwärts, which means backwards, so it's sort of a play on words. And then you also have Maximus, Flight of the Guardian is what that name translates to, at Legoland Germany. And we also have art for the train, which looks pretty cool. So those are your name reveals. And then we move on to our next bit, which is about Alton Towers. So we have a few things about Alton Towers. The first thing is that their Dark Ride Duel has been confirmed to be getting transformed back into a new version of the Haunted House ride, which was an attraction that existed from 1992 to 2003 before it eventually became Duel. And that originally focused on the exploration of the house with illusions and surprises, but it kind of deteriorated over time until it sort of became the shooting dark ride. So it's reverting back to that. And then Project Horizon has been revealed to be Secret Weapon 9 by a recent John Wardley interview, likely confirming that the project will be a new coaster because every previous Secret Weapon has been a roller coaster, including the first two that were canceled. So that is definitely really exciting to see. And actually have a link to the interview that confirmed both of those things. So there you go. Pretty exciting that they are indeed probably, I mean, they're getting a new coaster unless this is the first one to sort of break that rule. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see what it is, but it'll be indoors. So that'll certainly be interesting. Next, we have Tivoli Freehidden. I probably also butchered that as well. They have received permission to demolish Cobra, which is their Satori Rides inverted coaster. This is the one that had a fatal derailment last July that led to the death of a 14-year-old girl and an injury of another teenager. Obviously a very tragic situation, and for the best that it is gone. That was the second accident it had. And I tried to look into the park to see if this was a park prone to accidents. It seems that the only two accidents I could find relating to it were related to this coaster, which came from a manufacturer that mostly focuses on children's rides. So it seems like this was a problem that more related to the ride and compared to the park, but the investigation is still ongoing there, so to be determined for sure. But with that being said, in an article discussing this, it is said that Cobra will be replaced by a coaster, and members of the park actually went to Sydney, Australia to test ride a coaster. That is what one of the members of the park said. And the assumption is, since it's in Sydney, there's not very many options of coasters you could get that are still being produced. But an Intamin single rail would make a lot of sense, especially considering how compact they could be. So that is sort of the leading rumor of what their next coaster will be. But I won't dive into or speculate much further given the sort of the scale and seriousness of the accident that occurred last year. Next, we have another new coaster. Actually, I guess our first new coaster that we're talking about, like, confirmed. And that is a new Gerstlauer Bob coaster named Buckelbahn is coming to Ice Chrysler in Austria in 2023. This is an ice cream manufacturer that has a small park by their manufacturing facility. So it's actually kind of like Hershey Park, since the park is by the actual sort of sweets facility, but obviously on a much smaller scale. This is more of a family-oriented park. This will be the park's first coaster, and it is actually said to have a backwards back car, which is pretty interesting for more of a kiddie to family style coaster. And it looks like it'll have some nice, like, sort of scenery, especially with that sort of unique lift hill where you go through the tower. That looks pretty cool as well, and should be a good fit for a more family-oriented park for sure. Next, we have two bits of California's Great America news. The first is that we have learned recently about a canceled expansion thanks to the Storyland Studios website. So Storyland Studios is a company that they work to sort of design like areas and facades and other things of that nature, theming for parks around the world. They've worked with Universal. They actually just worked with Knott's to do their new restaurant that they opened last year. and they actually had a page they posted, which included artwork and information for the planned major re-theme and expansion that was planned for California's Great America. I have a link in the description if you want to look more into it, but basically what was supposed to happen is most of the park, or about a third of the park, would have turned into an area called Redwood Territory, which would have included new restaurants, ride re-themes, and there would have been another subsection they would have created also called Bicentennial Fair, which was in development, which included a new Ferris wheel called Great American Revolution. And they also mentioned that there was supposed to be a Giga Coaster as part of this, but the belief is that this was likely supposed to be a hyper, and they mentioned Giga Coaster because the sort of rumors is that the Great America Hyper project ended up becoming Orion. Not confirmed, but that's just sort of, a lot of people believe that at this point. And the project was canceled after the pandemic hit. That is what was mentioned in the on the website. And obviously this is pretty unfortunate to see. It seems like this park had a lot of potential, and it already was a pretty solid park as is, and it just had so much potential. So it is unfortunate to see that this couldn't work out and see where the park is. But it may not be all doom and gloom for California's Great America, because there's another bit of weird news that has come out, and that is that they have filed for, that permits have been filed for a new Zane Parallel Windstars flat ride that will replace an unspecified existing ride at California's Great America. So this is incredibly strange for a park that's supposed to be closing, be on limited life. This is a little strange to see them adding a new ride after that announcement. So that's definitely something that is interesting there. And there's sort of two ways I kind of see this. Some people have suggested that the park may actually just be looking to operate under a lease. They ended up doing, like, with their new, with Prologis, since they bought the land, because the park did actually operate under lease, like city lease, for a long time. Then Cedar Fair bought the land a few years ago, because the city, like, sort of part that had the lease going dissolved, and then they ended up getting sold to Prologis. And then the other way I could see this is that maybe this is just they want to get the most out of Great America, so they're just going to be adding a relatively cheap ride that can be easily relocated to another park after Great America closes. But very strange. It definitely is really strange that they would be doing this. We'll have to wait and see what this means for Great America's future, if it means anything at all. But like I said, definitely something that was very surprising. Next, we have news relating to Grizzly at King's Dominion, and that is that Gravity Group has been announced and confirmed as the manufacturer behind the Grizzly overhaul. And this is pretty expected. I think that this was the common, like, sort of guess and rumor. Some people thought it could have been GCI. I had heard it may have been, but it ended up being Gravity Group. So definitely happy with that. They did great work with Beast and Racer. So in this ride, we'll be utilizing their new engineered pre-cut track, which is fantastic. From the coasters I've experienced that have it, it is incredible. So definitely some good stuff coming to Grizzly, and should be pretty interesting to see. It should be pretty exciting to see it reopen with this new track and probably a better overall experience. So that is definitely good to see. Next, we have an announcement coming out of Slagharen in the Netherlands, and that is that they have announced that they are retheming their mock rides Dark Boat Ride, Wild West Adventure, and renaming the attraction Red Bandits Adventure. We also have some concept art here showing it. It'll have a new storyline where you follow the Red Bandits as you go through dangerous situations, and I guess throughout the ride you are going to be tested by the Red Bandits themselves. So that's sort of the idea of the ride. Concept art, like I said, has been released. And I know that Wild West Adventure had been around for a good bit. I think over 20 years, if I'm correct. So probably a good update. And for anyone going, this will definitely be one of the highlight attractions to do. Just because it looks like a pretty unique ride. It looked like a pretty cool ride as Wild West Adventure, and with a new update and with probably hopefully enhanced and better theming, it'll be an even better experience. So that definitely looks pretty fun. This is sort of smaller news, but if you're in Iowa, a new Malibu Jack's location is coming to a mall in Bettendorf, Iowa this year. So anyone looking for a new SBF Visa spinning coaster credit, here you go. And it is confirmed to be getting an SBF Visa spinning coaster. So there you go, another new credit in Iowa. And this is part of a chain, Malibu Jack's. It's a growing family entertainment center chain. And this Iowa location will actually be, I believe, the 5th location. So that is something to note. And then this Malibu Jack's is actually owned by a larger chain called 5 Star Parks and Attractions, which owns other FECs as well. So like I said, new credit, and another new family entertainment center popping up. Next, we have the Universal Parks news, which I actually did a video on this specifically last week, but I'll go through it a little bit here. But basically, an upcoming family theme park in Frisco, Texas, and horror experience coming to Las Vegas has been announced. So that is obviously extremely exciting. Regional Universal parks and attractions. That is awesome to see. I think that's like sort of my biggest takeaway is that I'd love to see more stuff like this. And I'm very curious to see how good these experiences are. Obviously both very different, one targeting families, one targeting like young adults. So definitely will be pretty interesting to see how this works. I'm especially curious to see how the horror experience ends up looking like, because we have very little details on what that will actually be like. But it will be year round, which is pretty cool for sure. But we also have some other Universal news, and that is that Universal has, I know I have the picture here, this is not confirmed, what is confirmed is that Universal has filed a trademark in the European database for Universal Destinations and Experiences. That is the trademark they filed. And interestingly enough, the second language listed for the trademark is Spanish, the second language for the trademark, which, considering it's in Europe, is interesting because Spanish is not the second most commonly spoken language in Europe. It's actually a decent bit down the list. And this has fueled the growing rumor that Universal is going to, or has already been reacquired, or has already, I should say, reacquired PortAventura in Spain. This is obviously not confirmation, but it is certainly a promising sign if you are hoping for that. Definitely something to keep an eye on, as well as if we see other updates. There's been a lot of weird signs if you've been like sort of following the forums and things of that sort. And I visited PortAventura this last year, and I think in some ways Universal managing the parks could benefit PortAventura. There are ways though I'd be a little concerned, because I don't know if they would be keeping the whole like sort of different parts of the world, different countries sort of theme. But my hope is that they would, and do and bring some better attractions. So yeah, there you go. So that is something definitely that was really interesting, the trademark in the European database. There's been a few other little things that have been going around, but looking into them, there's reason to believe they're not like sort of legitimate like information. Like I know a URL went up or something, like someone bought a domain, but I think that's been debunked. So hopefully this ends up working out, and the trademark hopefully was a sign of that. Next, we have Gerstlauer. They've been revealed as the manufacturer for Bayern Park's 2023 family coaster. This is the only bit of info we had about it before the Gerstlauer reveals the manufacturer. So basically, it's a family shuttle coaster. And we have this artwork as our only bit of actual info. We don't know much about this ride. Maybe it'll end up being very similar to something like Rewind Racers would be my guess. Bayern Park, I looked at their lineup. They could use a more modern family coaster, so I think that fits the bill and should be a good fit because of that. Bayern Park is in Germany. I think I said that, but if I didn't, I'll specify that. Next, we have news coming out of InDrive Tech, who is the manufacturer of Intamin's LSM launches, and they have revealed that they will be part of a new coaster project that will travel at speeds up to 240 kilometers per hour or about 150 miles per hour. I think they said around 240, so it could be a little more, because I know if you exactly calculate it, it comes out to like 149 miles per hour. But they said it would be record-breaking in terms of speed. So there you go. Many have speculated this is either for Top Thrill Dragster or Falcon's Flight at Six Flags Qiddiya in Saudi Arabia. I believe that it is for Falcon's Flight, because I don't believe that InDrive Tech nor Intamin is going to be involved with Dragster. This just seems to make a lot more sense. That's what I believe it is, but we don't know for sure, obviously. Like, it's not totally confirmed, but like I said, I think the project they're referring to is Falcon's Flight, which is, as of right now, moving ahead. So, yeah, that is still pretty interesting to see, though, that they are acknowledging something this early in terms of, like, sort of a ballpark number around the speed, because I think we've been kind of waiting for the sort of actual stats of this coaster. So something to keep an eye on as we sort of see what happens with Falcon's Flight in the future years. Next, we have the Ace No Coaster Con announcements. We had several. Santa's Village in Illinois will receive Farmer's Fling, which is an SBF Visa spinning coaster, and Pirate's Revenge, which is a swinging ship for 2023. Six Flags Over Georgia will be receiving a Skyline Attractions Dueling Pescetti Bowl coaster for 2023, which that's obviously exciting. It's unfortunate that it came the year after I visited, but it's cool that they're getting a new coaster. And they did kind of need more of a kiddie style coaster, because I think all they have is the Joker's Funhouse, which I'd even call more of a like family coaster. So this definitely makes a lot of sense for being added to the park. Six Flags St. Louis is getting a kiddie ride for 2023. They have not specified what it will be, but it will replace their go-karts. I think there's a decent chance it does end up being another Pescetti Bowl coaster, but we'll have to wait and see for that one. And then Holiday World announced that Voyage will receive 1,600 feet of new engineered pre-cut track from Gravity Group, which is amazing. Definitely looking forward to that. I was wondering when they were going to put it on Voyage, and I'm happy to see they're doing it this year. Because like I said, I've ridden Beast, I've ridden Racer, and they did a phenomenal job with those two coasters. So I'm definitely excited to see what it can do for Voyage, especially helping it hold up for the long term. Raven will also be receiving a few hundred feet of retracking, though. Information about that is a little more limited. And then from those who attended, they claim that Lost Island actually announced that a fourth coaster is being planned, but they gave no further information beyond that. But they did also show a Matugani testing POV for those who attended. So a lot of announcements there, but we'll be moving on to our next one, which is Drayton Manor. They will be receiving a new family thrill coaster in 2024. This was revealed in an interview with Parc Managing Director Victoria Lynn. She claimed it will be one of the best coasters in the United Kingdom. Definitely a bold claim considering how stacked of a year 2024 looks to be for the UK. But hey, good to be hyping it up. Hopefully they have something pretty exciting. I have seen some people throw around the idea of sort of like a Vekoma family coaster, kind of like Big Bear Mountain, or the one going to Dream World Jungle Rush is I think what it's called. That certainly could be something pretty interesting, but we'll have to wait and see. And then this will use Apocalypse's former plot of land. I mean, obviously it'll take up more space than that, but that was the former Intamin drop tower that closed last year. Drayton Manor is in the UK as mentioned, so something that another new coaster in the UK, another new project to look forward to for 2024. We have Thorpe Park getting Project Exodus. Alton Towers is doing the Nemesis retrack and refurbishment. Legoland Windsor has a leaked family shuttle, or I should just say family coaster on the way. I think family dueling coaster. And then now we have this. So pretty exciting year for the UK overall, and this definitely will add to that. Next, we have Six Flags Darien Lake. They have officially confirmed that Predator will receive more Titan track in 2023. They got it last year, their first Titan track pieces in 2022, and I've heard very good reviews of how it tracks and how it rides, so definitely exciting to see that they're getting more work next year. And I think that's pretty much it. Just more track and a smoother overall ride experience, and hopefully a better overall ride experience coming for Predator, which does have a pretty solid layout, so definitely good to see. Next, we have Chessington World of Adventures. They have officially unveiled that the 3 new rides coming to the world of Jumanji for 2023. We kind of already knew these just because of leaks, but now they've officially announced them. They will be receiving Mandrill Mayhem, which will be a B&M Shuttle wing coaster. Ostrich Stampede, which will be an SBF Visa Super Jumper flat ride. And Mamba Strike, which will be an SBF Visa Junior Miami attraction. Now, the trains in the concept art for Mandrill Mayhem, I think I talked about this in one of the previous episodes. I was a little kind of like up in the air in terms of the whole Mandrill Mayhem name and sort of theme, but if the trains look anything like they do in the concept art, consider me sold. I think it looks awesome. I think it looks really cool. So I definitely like it. If the I like how the trains look and the overall theme of it. If the trains look anything like they do in the concept art. And what's interesting is in some of the concept art for the attraction, if you look at this larger one, you'll actually see that the back row for Mandrill Mayhem is backwards. And there was another piece of concept art that showed backwards facing rows, but the one on the top left shows them all going forward. So it's unclear, but it appears that Mandrill Mayhem should be having some sort of backward facing row, whether that's one row or multiple rows or something like that. Probably just one though. But that is definitely something that would be really interesting. Really cool way to sort of shake up the experience for rewritability. So that'll be something to see if that actually gets implemented into the attraction. But I hope it does. Looks really cool. And I think the area is going to be overall a really nice addition for Chessington. So definitely some good stuff there. And then we're moving on to our tail end of our news pieces. So Knoebels has revealed that they have a Bartlett flying coaster in storage. Now this is not an actual coaster. In fact, this ride is the same ride model as Kangaroo at Kennywood, which is the only other surviving version of this ride model. And they revealed this on Facebook. And the park has said that they do not have a timeline as to when they're going to open it, and they even said they're not even sure if they are going to be able to, but they said they would like to work on it and hopefully eventually get it open. The team at Knoebels is obviously fantastic. They've helped create some of the most unique, or recreate in some cases, some of the most unique classic rides out there. Phoenix, obviously flying turns has been kind of problematic, but I mean, the fact that they were even able to build it is pretty impressive, considering there hadn't been one of those built in so long. So I'm sure that the Knobles team, if anyone can rebuild one of these, they are the ones who can do it. We'll have to wait and see when that is, but I'm definitely hopeful that they'll be able to eventually, whenever that is, whether it's next year or 5 years from now, get this thing back open and get this thing to operate. That'd be pretty cool. So I like I said, I just hope that we're able to see this eventually happen. And that's pretty exciting news that they do happen to have one of these. That's awesome. Next, we have Zamperla. They have confirmed that they will be manufacturing the Big Red Boat powered kiddie coaster coming to Dreamworld in Australia in 2023. This will be part of the Kenny and Belinda's Dreamland, which will be a $15 million expansion and retheme of their DreamWorks Kids area that currently exists. And the coaster will be themed to the Wiggles, which is actually based in Australia. I did not know that, but apparently that's the case. Not too much else to say here, but I guess I'll say it's another Zamperla coaster. I like the direction Zamperla's going. Obviously a smaller scale project, but nice to see them get another project as they seem to be getting more and more. So you like to see that. Next, we have our two rumors, and that is the first. And the first one relates to the rumored SeaWorld Orlando 2024 coaster. So if you're not caught up with this, basically, I talked about it in the last episode. SeaWorld Orlando, there are already construction walls up near the sort of sea lion exhibit, which is very close to what used to be Empire of the Penguin, like the dark ride. There are already construction walls up and some sort of like work being done there. And it was kind of rumored that an Intamin motorbike would be replacing the dark ride. But there is now a new rumor that seems to suggest perhaps it's not going to be an Intamin motorbike. And Screamscape is reporting that Mock Ride's reps were supposedly spotted by the site of the rumored Antarctica Empire of the Penguin dark ride replacement. And the belief is that if this is indeed a Mock Rides coaster, it would be something that is pretty similar to, say, Manta at SeaWorld San Diego, which obviously the connection there being that that's a SeaWorld coaster. I have never ridden an Intamin motorbike, but I have ridden Manta, and I will say this, if this does actually happen, this would be extremely exciting. I think Manta is a phenomenal family coaster, or family sort of thrill coaster. One of the best of its category, and honestly, I think it looks a lot better than the Intamin motorbikes. Not to say the Intamin motorbikes look bad, but I just think this has a lot more to it in terms of layout and forces and just overall fun. It just seems to be just a better attraction for my preferences anyways, and I'm sure a lot of others. So if they do end up getting a ride like this, I think that would be awesome. I think that would be really cool to see, and the people in Florida should be pretty excited if they get anything that's even close to Manta, because that ride is really good. So obviously a rumor. We'll have to keep an eye on the sort of progress here, as we're also keeping an eye on like pipeline, of course. But another sort of park to circle for 2024. I think any which way it is, whoever is the manufacturer, I think SeaWorld Orlando is going to be one of those parks you can expect to be getting a 2024 coaster, just because there's so much activity. So that is something to be excited about. Lastly, we have our last rumor, which comes from The Wrap, and they are reporting that they have heard that Universal Studios Hollywood is eyeing a Donkey Kong expansion to their upcoming Super Nintendo World. That would, of course, include the Donkey Kong coaster. Now, in the article, they claim a spot has already been chosen for this future expansion. And this actually is, the spot is said to be some what is right now current sound stages that would be getting demolished. And so this would not be replacing like Revenge of the Mummy. There was a rumor that that was going to happen, which seemed pretty unlikely. So that is something that was sort of said in the article, that it would be built where some sound stages behind Super Nintendo World are currently. And there's some things wrong with the article that seem a little strange though. Like they said that the Donkey Kong area might be able to open in 2025 at the same time as Epic Universe. That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because Epic Universe's version is already like so far along. There's just no chance that they can just build this and get it ready in time for 2025. It just seems incredibly unlikely to me. But there is that. And they actually asked the vice president of Universal Creative about a Hollywood Donkey Kong expansion. And he said, in response to the question, that he said, and quote, "I can say there are some very exciting things on the way," which is a pretty generic answer. It doesn't really mean much, but that is something that was mentioned. And as for my thoughts on the rumor, I think it's actually pretty likely we'll see this. It seems like all the other Super Nintendo worlds are going to be getting a Donkey Kong expansion eventually. And I think that if they can figure out the situation with the sound stages, that Universal Hollywood will be no different. So I do hope that the rumors are true. I think there's a pretty good chance they're true in terms of them actually getting an expansion. And I think it'd be awesome for Universal Hollywood because this, along with the, of course, leaked Fast and Furious coaster coming next year, Revenge of the Mummy, that would actually be a pretty solid lineup of coasters considering Universal Hollywood's limitations. So that would obviously be very exciting, and the Donkey Kong coaster appears to be a very groundbreaking attraction. So that would be awesome to see. That's going to wrap it up for the news for this episode. Obviously, a lot to go through. Actually, I guess timing-wise, took about as long as I thought. With that being said, I think we're going to get to our first viewer call-ins pretty quickly here. I'm going to put in the link here in the chat pretty quickly, so that way we can get that. It's also in the description, but that's going to be the plan. There it is in the chat. Just need to pin it. And there we go. And actually, I'm going to get the light on. It's kind of out of reach. I had to change the setup over here, so I'm going to have to fix that real quick. So I'll get that. I'll actually be right back. There we go. Okay. I think the light might be a little too much, but it'll have to do. Alrighty, so viewer call-in time. You can, if you want to join, click the StreamYard link in the chat. How this is basically going to work is like it's been done in the previous streams, where I'll like bring you on, and I pretty much will ask your thoughts on the news and what interested you the most, and like sort of your either like what you think of it, or yeah, pretty much like what you think of the news. So that's gonna be pretty much how that works. And we have a few people in here. Alrighty. Kenny Fair was the first one in here, so I'll be asking if you are good to come on in the private chat here. And if that's the case, then that'll pretty much start us off pretty quickly here. Alrighty, great. Alrighty, so for Kenny Farrell, I'm going to bring you on a 5-second countdown, which will start now. So I'm going to bring you in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing good. It's been busy, but been doing pretty good.
Yeah, it's like 9 p.m. here right now.
Yeah, I that's sort of the issue with the night streams is like Eastern people in the Eastern time. It's like they kind of it's a little late for them, so I apologize for that. But
And that's completely fine.
yep. So out of all the sort of news that I discussed, or if you have any that you want to go into that I didn't, what were the ones that interested you the most, and what are your thoughts on them?
I think the Falcons flight and the canceled California Great America expansion was pretty interesting. Um, I think that if COVID didn't happen, that CGA wouldn't have been like this screwed over right now. And also I like the Mandrill Mayhem news. I think that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be, yeah. The Great America thing is just very unfortunate. It would have been just so good to see what could have happened if it would is if the I mean obviously pandemic kind of hurt a lot of things, but man, that would have been nice to see. And then yeah, Mandrill Mayhem is pretty fascinating in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I like the train design.
Agreed. It's really good.
Yeah.
Any any other thoughts?
Um, Not really, but like earlier in the stream, you said Steve was your number three. I want to know what your other two, your top three is.
Oh, I have a weird top three. Okay, so my number three is Steel Vengeance, as I mentioned. Actually, you know what? My one and three aren't that weird. My number two is actually Beast, based off the Night Ride. I got this year. I got two of them. I mean, yes, it is very just like older enthusiasts. It's like a favorite of theirs. You don't really see younger enthusiasts who rank it that high. But I don't know, man. It was an experience. It was like just obviously like not like super like crazy in terms of elements or things of that sort, but the atmosphere of a ride and just the overall experience of it really was what made it special. It just wasn't really like any other coaster I had done, and so that's why it's there. And then my number one's Voyage, which I don't think I needed to explain that much. So, yeah,
Yeah, Voyage looks actually insane.
yep,
Yeah, Steve's my number one because it's going up against Maverick and Phantom's Revenge. So
that's a pretty fantastic top three. So
yeah,
can't argue with that.
yeah, and Millie like barely missed out. I got an amazing Millie night ride though.
Oh yeah, those are fantastic. I got one, and that saved the ride for me a little bit, for sure. So yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess, was there any other thing you wanted to go into here?
Not really. Um, yeah, I think that's about it.
Already sounds good. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time.
Yep. See ya.
Alrighty. Huge thanks to Kenny Fair for coming on. Definitely sort of Mandrill Mayhem, just the whole thing of it, with it having potentially a backwards train. It's very weird. And then Great America is a park that you can just tell it had so much potential, but it just didn't quite happen. Just for it's just not happening for various reasons. So that's obviously very unfortunate to see. So some good things to be brought up there, and we even got to talk about our top threes a little bit. So yeah, there you go. Alrighty, next I'm gonna bring on Jay from Insane Coaster Junkie. You ready? Already cool. You know how this works. Alrighty, so I'm gonna bring you in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Jay, how are you doing? Oh, you're muted.
Oh, there we go.
There you go. Yep.
Microphone went Yinzer mode. Yeah, new setting here. So back at college. So first week of the semester was pretty good. So just laying low for the next several weeks.
Awesome. Yep. I both of us starting college semester pretty recently, so there we go. Alrighty, so out of the news segments or the news topics I discussed, which were some of the ones that interested you, and I guess why?
I got about three or so in my head, and the first one I want to address right off the bat is the Top Thrill Dragster 2.0, which I've been very excited and very patiently waiting for. It's almost like when a Metallica album comes out. You've been waiting for years for it, and boom, it just comes out of nowhere about an announcement. That's what happened with yesterday's single Screaming Suicide, but that's neither here or there. But what I could see, I probably still think Zamperla is the manufacturer of this ride, and definitely LSM. I was the one who said about the whole Q line setup. Personally, I see that being rerouted due to the incident, and El Toro Ryan did a really good video about it. So I definitely agree with him that could be shifted over. Train-wise, I'm not sure train-wise about that. So once it gets closer, I would take a little grain of salt there. But I'm very excited about how Dragster is going to look. It's for those people saying it's going to have a spike or swing launch. I honestly do not believe that. It's probably still going to be original to the design layout. So at least for Dragster, I'm very excited. And my last ride was, September 2019. So it's been a while since I've ridden it.
Yeah, I'm very much with you in terms of I don't believe it's going to have a reverse launch. If it had any extra element, that's what I do believe it would be. It would be a reverse launch spike, but I don't see that happening. You mentioned the cars or the trains, like you were uncertain of something relating to that.
Well, we don't know what kind of design they're going for.
So my guess was it was going to be like the Zamperla's, I think, putting their new trains on that P&E coaster
going to Canada.
Yep, and they also mentioned that could be launched at speeds that would be required for, say, something like Dragster. So my assumption is it would be new Zamperla trains, but I mean,
you never know with Cedar Fair.
Yep, that's true.
This is more of a recent acquisition, so kind of like Waldemar in a way. You never know what comes with Zamperla. But that also gets to my question. Yeah, I know they're trying to aim for more uptime, but Zamperla is kind of known for quite a bit of downtime. So that's another concern I have.
Valid. We don't know what they haven't done an LSM launch yet, so that's going to be an interesting sort of experience to see how that goes, for sure.
Exactly. My next one, I'm kind of just scrolling through your comment, not your comment, your whole description, because there's a lot on my mind. I'll quickly address the Titan track situation I said last episode. Very happy about that. Cannot wait to see what new sections they have for the plan this year. Obviously, I've already told you that it got better, so hopefully this can shoot up further than number 20 on the list.
Yeah, I remember you talking about it, like it was in your top 25, and I mean I did watch your video on that actually, which was very good. But yeah, so that is pretty exciting to see Predator getting even better, because I think I mentioned it, and other people have certainly mentioned it, but the layout is certainly promising. So good to see.
Well, you're not going to know what's my worst coaster now after the whole Predator shebang.
Oh God, I'm trying to I'm trying to think of what you've done. Is it another wooden coaster, or
actually not? It's Time Warp at Canada's Wonderland. Now that's my number one worst coaster now. So
yeah, understandable.
So there's that. One more thing from your news, and then I got bonus Waldemar because we got more info on that. My last on your behalf is the whole Universal expansion. So I am very accustomed to the Mario franchise because I grew up playing Mario games and they've been my forte. So Universal Hollywood just opened theirs, and I'm seeing the reviews are amazing. The land looks beautiful. It's decked out and exactly how I wanted to be for a Nintendo-themed land. That Mario Kart ride kind of looks a little less to be desired, but obviously it's with the AR technology, so the POV doesn't really catch that. But I'm very excited to see it, and I'm very optimistic about a Donkey Kong ride. Obviously not in the next, for Hollywood, but definitely for like Epic Universe. Donkey Kong, if there's a mine level in Donkey Kong Country 2, I believe. I think it's called Haunted Mine or something, and they're jumping on the track. So if they can do something with the jumping mimic, that would be really cool. And just there's also a Mario Kart track, like the DK Ruins or whatever. So if they go for like that type of route-esque, that would be cool. But I'm very excited to see how Super Nintendo World can really bring in a new target demographic, especially kids who may not be familiar with Mario. Yeah, I'm a 23-year-old who still appreciates Mario games, but I think this is a land that's going to benefit everybody, and it's highly interactive.
Yeah, it was obviously really exciting to see it. It's soft opened here at Hollywood. I don't usually put soft openings, so for anyone wondering why I didn't put that in, that's why. But I have seen the footage, and actually my friend a few weeks ago, I have a friend who went to Japan. He did the one over there. He's not an enthusiast, but he was able to check that one out early. Similar thoughts to what you said. The Mario Kart ride was a little underwhelming. He did say the queue was fantastic, though. And he was able to spend a little bit of time, but yeah, the area is super interactive. So we're going to head over to Hollywood and check it out, hopefully in the next year or two.
I'm super excited for your thoughts.
Yeah, it's going to be, it should be fun. And God, I really hope we get a Donkey Kong coaster. I mean, it's exciting that Epic Universe is getting it and that Japan's getting it, but man, I'd be over the moon if we were to get it here in Hollywood. That would be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
so
but I understand that Hollywood's very landlocked, so if it doesn't happen, oh well. But if it does, great, but you never know.
Yeah, I'll be able to check it out any which way, but it'd make it a lot easier if it's like 3 hours from me. So
yeah, and I'm all the way in Pennsylvania, so that's not feasible.
Yeah.
And then speaking of, for last thing, there's a quick update on the water coaster at Waldameer, my stomping ground. Got some very good news out of them, and fiberglass is slowly starting to trickle in for the new water coaster. Parts are just starting to deliver as of 2-3 days ago. So there's going to be a bunch of parts because this thing's 67 feet tall, 830 feet long. So you need a lot of parts. And they haven't really started vertical construction, but the post has said one step closer to vertical construction. So within the next maybe month or two, I would hope to see some vertical construction going on. And just the whole process of this is being insane. It looks like they're making a pump house behind the restrooms. So that's going to be good because we kind of had some water issues last year, just a lack of water pressure. So just another classic ICJ update on a water coaster that I've been really excited about the past several months.
Yeah, I'm definitely I see some of the posts and things of that sort. Even though I don't cover it on here, I still am curious because I know your connection with the park, having worked there and being local to it and everything. So I keep that in mind when looking at it. But I mean, I mentioned that I just rode water coasters for the first time last year, and I'm a huge fan. So whenever I get out to Waldameer, it'll certainly be like one of my top bucket list rides to do there. So I'm definitely curious to see how this thing goes in terms of construction updates and everything of that sort.
I know I'm very sketchy about an opening because people are just telling me, oh, it could be, Memorial Day weekend when it opens, or I'm being a little caution to the wind by saying June, just in case it's not ready. So I don't know. Some years water world attractions have opened in late July, and some have opened like right on time. So I don't know. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I don't know much about like water slide and water attraction construction progress. I'm sure some people who have a better understanding could kind of be like, oh, give a general rough estimate of when it's going to happen given the stage it's at. But it seems like, I mean, coasters and flat rides and everything are a complicated process on their own, but it definitely also seems like water slides and water coasters are also definitely their own pretty complicated process. So it's hard to say.
Considering that I told you before that it's interacting over and under water slides and nothing's being removed, that just adds another extra difficult step to the equation.
Yeah, that would be a pretty difficult construction obstacle.
And how Waldemar is extremely land-like, like Universal Hollywood for you. It's, I don't know how they're doing it, but magic.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's like, that's how the best do it. Just figure it out some way, somehow. So, yeah.
And that's pretty much all I got for tonight.
Alrighty, sounds good. Once again, Jay, thank you for coming on. Always awesome to have you on here, and really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.
Always a pleasure. Looking forward to the next one.
Alrighty, see ya. Alrighty, huge thanks to Jay for coming on. Obviously brought up the water coaster coming to Waldemar, which is an exciting project of it in and of its own. So we'll have to see how construction sort of progresses with it. Vertical construction hopefully coming in the next month or so. Would be nice to see. And then also cool to talk about, Universal, the Super Nintendo World, which is a just super fascinating project overall. Dragster, of course, and yeah, all extremely interesting. Alrighty, so next I'm going to bring on Jackson. I'll ask you in chat if you're ready. Alright, and so I'll be bringing you on after a 5-second countdown, which will start now. So I'm bringing you on in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Jackson, how are you doing?
What up, Carrick? How you doing?
I'm doing good. As I mentioned earlier, it's been a little bit of a busy week, college and everything, but doing pretty good.
Yep, definitely get it.
Alrighty, so what out of the news we've sort of talked about, what were the ones or the topics that interested you the most?
The one that interests me a little bit more was Grizzly at King's Dominion was getting that retracking from the Gravity Group. I've heard a lot of people saying that like Grizzly at King's Dominion is like one of the rougher wooden coasters ever made. And now that it's getting retracked from the Gravity Group, I'm guessing it's going to be running so well, and I expect it to be a lot better than it used to be originally.
Yep. I mean, if it's anything like what they did with their previous projects, it's going to be smooth and run really well. So excited to see it.
Yeah. And then for other ones, I mean, Top Thrill Dragster, obviously, like that was one I've been excited for a while. I'm excited to see what the park is going to do with it. There's a lot of speculation going around, and I'm guessing it's going to be Zamperla. I'm guessing they're going to be using the Lightning trains, and it's going to be LSM. So I'm curious to see how well it'll run next year, because I'm not sure it'll be exactly like it used to be before when it was hydraulic launch. I'm guessing it's going to be maybe weaker, but it'll still be fun, and I still think it's going to be a great ride at the park.
Absolutely. I had the chance to ride Red Force this year.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's a little more powerful than that because that was a little bit of a letdown.
Yeah.
I do understand that the initial kick and there's going to be some power that's sort of lost, but it'll still be really good as always. So I'm excited to see it reopen, whatever that ends up looking like.
Mm-hmm. And then for other news, I mean, the Donkey Kong one looks really good. I know it's like the thing with like jumping the track. I'm curious to see how Universal will do that. But I know they go for very like crazy things. So I'm curious to see how that will work out. And then also Six Flags Great America getting the B&M parts as well as Six Flags Great Adventure. I'm guessing it'd be probably for one of their B&M coasters, so maybe X-Flight or Raging Bull. But if it's like train redos, then I'd love to see like the trains get redoed in a certain way that makes them like better than before.
Yeah, that I believe I saw speculation. I wish I had more time for the Great America one. Nitro for Great Adventure, it was assumed that it was for uh another train for Nitro, so for maintenance reasons, pretty much, just so they can continuously have like 2 to 3 trains operating. And from my understanding, the Great America one was a similar situation,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll have to wait and see what exactly that is.
Nice. And then lastly, I mean, you heard about the Diamondback repaint, right? Where that's getting like painted Chrisman red and brown.
Yep, I missed that. Good. I knew I had like a note somewhere to put it in and I forgot. But yes, I did hear about that.
Yeah, that's gonna look pretty cool as well. Because I mean, it still looks great even though it was made in 2009. But I think with the new repaint, it's gonna look way cleaner and it's gonna look a lot better at the park.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't I saw the coaster in person for the first time. It like the quality of paint is good. I'm not the biggest fan of the color scheme it has. I know that this one's going to be a slight bit different, so I'm curious how noticeable it will be. But I'm certainly interested to see how that looks.
Yeah, definitely. And then besides that, that's pretty much it for me.
Alrighty, awesome. And actually, I should have put a note here to do this. And I'll just say for Insane Coaster Junkie and Kenny Fair, make sure to follow them on their socials. But if you want to plug your socials, now would be the time to do that.
Yeah. So if you guys want to follow me, my Instagram is Jackson Loves Roller Coasters. I make pretty good stuff over there, but if you're into roller coasters, then go check me out over there. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Alrighty, so thank you so much for coming on. It was really fun to talk about the various different projects, Dragster, Donkey Kong, and then the Diamondback repaint. I totally missed that, but thank you for reminding me of that, because that's definitely one that was worth mentioning on here. And yeah, thank you very much for coming on.
Of course, of course.
Alrighty, see you next time.
All right, I'll see you.
Alrighty, so next we're gonna be Chris from Airtime Thrills. Ask if you're ready. Awesome. Alrighty, so same thing. I'll bring you in on a 5-second countdown, starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Chris, how are you doing?
What's up, Carrick? How's it going?
I'm doing quite well tonight.
Yeah, it's a lot of interesting stuff going on. I don't have a whole lot of time, but there's some things that did catch my attention. First of all, Falcon's Flight, the company that said they're working on a 150 mile an hour coaster. It's like, holy crap, is this thing actually going to happen? I think we all assumed that it was going to be like, I don't know. You see all these projects that are announced and then they turn out to be like a shell of what they're supposed to be. I remember when Full Throttle was first rumored, they were like, oh, it's going to go all around the park and it's going to be like the world's longest coaster, and it ended up being like extremely short. So it's like, yeah, Falcon's Flight might be like an intimate mega light by the time they're done. But they're actually talking about 150 feet, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's crazy. I know that there's been some groundwork done for like the station and like some areas where footers would be. But it's crazy to see that it does appear that they are really moving ahead with it. We'll see what exactly it ends up looking like. Still a lot of work to be done for sure, but definitely appears that they are moving as planned. Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see. Is it really going to go up the mountain in that weird way where it like defies gravity? It's going to be awesome. Also, SeaWorld Orlando. It's like cool it. Like you're barely even getting ready to open one ride, and you're already setting up for a next one. Like, who do you think you are? Six Flags from 1999. It's wild. Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see if the other parks kind of follow suit. But I know, like Busch Gardens, it's kind of tricky because a lot of these parks, they had plans for the 2000 or 2020, and then it got pushed back. So then they're kind of unleashing the stuff that they had after that. But SeaWorld, I mean, the surf coaster pipeline, that was for this year, and then they're just all like, okay, yeah, let's go for a family coaster. It's like, I wonder when they're going to stop. Maybe when they're like Energylandia, then they go for the full 30 coasters before they stop going. I don't know, but it's fun. I mean, I'm not complaining.
Yeah, it's actually interesting, like seeing that so SeaWorld Orlando definitely is like on the map for 2024 coaster. Busch Gardens Williamsburg, they had that the sort of height waiver or whatever for 2024, 200 plus feet. So that one's also definitely out there. It'll be interesting to see if we get anything of interest from the other parks, but good to see. And it's crazy that they're just still continuing to add, like as you said, like Six Flags in the 90s. So
yeah, luckily they have fewer parks, and they do charge more to get in, so maybe it'll work out for them. But I know during the pandemic they were talking about like them not paying their vendors. People were like, there was like several of their projects that they were like on hold because no one was getting paid, and it kind of seemed like it wasn't going great, but it seems like it's going well now. So I guess we're all along for the ride. Hopefully, regardless of what happens to SeaWorld, we'll end up with a whole bunch of cool rides out of it, whatever they're smoking over there. So
exactly.
That's SeaWorld. You also mentioned California's Great America. They are possibly like talking about maybe leasing the park from Prologis, which is interesting considering that they've already said they want to kind of, scale down the park, and yet they're still adding things, which is weird. But yeah, I don't know. Like, why would Prologis want to buy the park and then lease it back unless they have to, unless they're forced to by the city, maybe?
Yeah, the whole that's like sort of the park hasn't actually come out and said like that's their plan, but that was just sort of the thinking some people had, was that perhaps they are like looking to just operate off a lease. But why would Prologis do that? That just doesn't really seem like something they would do.
Yeah, especially because they mentioned that they want to scale the park back. Now maybe if they never mentioned that, maybe they sold it to them and they wanted maybe just to invest in the real estate, and then yeah, maybe that. But they were pretty explicit about the fact that this park had an expiration date, and this Prologis company is known for building the warehouses, so that seems like where they would want to do it. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe the city will step in and cause a stink, and Prologis will be like, okay, fine, we'll keep the land, but you can just lease the park from us. And I don't know. If Cedar Fair doesn't do it, maybe someone else will.
The whole thing was pretty funny to me, like when it happened, because the I think it was the mayor of the city, or I believe, was like saying they weren't gonna let that happen, like the park turn into basically warehousing or whatever.
Yeah.
Yet the county is basically the one that sort of, in a way, put the park in this situation. They have kind of rejected expansion after expansion, so it's kind of like, what exactly do you want?
Yeah. Yeah. Did they reject anything to do with their big 20-year plan? I didn't hear about that. Is that the case?
I don't know for sure. My assumption is, I don't know if we have like an actual like sort of confirmation about anything relating to the 20-year plan, but it's just kind of assumed that's been the issue, because I think the county has been sort of stingy in the past. We know that Discovery Kingdom, a little further north, is extremely stingy with their sort of policies. And then like Great America, they've been wanting to get a hyper forever, and it hasn't happened. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I didn't know if that was because of just Cedar Fair's decision, or because the county or the city took over, or stepped in and said you can't do it. But yeah, I know that Cedar Fair has been trying to kind of hawk this park for a while. Like in 2011, they tried to sell it, and that fell through. So it wasn't a huge shock when they did it again. It was just a little surprising because between 2011 and now, they've bought the land under the park, and they had this big plan to expand the park. So they just seem to be all over the place with this thing. Nothing would surprise me at this point, honestly.
Yeah, the 2011 thing, I believe, was, I read into it, it was actually related to the Niners stadium. That was when it was agreed.
Right. Yeah, they were able to work something out with the 49ers after the fact. But before they worked it out, they were definitely concerned that that was going to cause a big issue. And it still sucks that the park has to close down whenever the Niners have a home game, especially when they're a high seed in the playoffs and they're probably going to host 3 playoff games unless my Eagles can win, which I'm not too confident in. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, well, yeah, I have the Niners making it as the NFC team, but if the Eagles do it,
I don't blame you at all. I don't blame you. I kind of see that happening too.
If the Eagles do it, that'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the last thing I was just random thing, just the whole backwards train on the was it the Mandrill Mayhem? It's a shuttle coaster. Who cares if you're backwards? You're gonna be backwards at some point anyway. So I don't know. It's gonna be weird to see a B&M shuttle coaster. I never thought I'd see the day, but here we are.
Yeah, and that the whole thing with the backwards train is pretty weird because I think I mentioned some artwork it's like one row, some artwork it's like multiple rows are backwards, and then there's another one where it's like none of them are backwards. It's just like, okay, what's happening here? Yeah. I mean, as you said, it is a shuttle, so does it really matter? I guess not, but
it doesn't matter. It's like in Vertigo at Kings Island. It's like, you want to face forward or backward? It's like, who cares? I don't know. But yeah, anyway, I got to run, but I just want to thank you for doing all this and keeping everyone updated on your Instagram. Like, you are an awesome follow on Instagram for all things theme park news. So whenever I see your little red circle pop up around there, I always got to see what's going on because it's always something interesting. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, and I appreciate the compliment and you coming on here. It was awesome to have you on.
Yeah, no problem.
Alrighty, see you, Chris.
All right, see ya.
Oh shoot! Make sure to follow, if you aren't already. Make sure to follow Chris on YouTube. I meant to do the social media thing, but make sure to follow Chris Airtime Drills on YouTube and Instagram if you haven't already. I imagine most of you on here have, but if you haven't, there you go. And with that being said, we're gonna be History and Leisure. Are you ready to go? It looks like you're gonna be the last guest on here unless someone else wants to come in, which you still can. If you want to come in the backstage, you can. But yeah, there you go. Alrighty, so there we go. Looks like we're good. So I'm going to bring you in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. How are you doing?
I know you're following Discovery Line on Instagram when I was looking during your PortAventura discussion. And it's like, I haven't been there, you have, but you know the story. But have you seen the whole story going on with all the? Yeah, there's especially the enthusiasts in Catalonia, with the whole Universal rumor on a story, or not really.
If it's a rumor on his recent story, no. I've been following on the Spanish forums and whatnot, the whole sort of saga, I guess.
Story, there's a thing where there's a small little statue. I think it's in the Mediterranean area of the park. I think it's like a little Virgin Mary statue that they're all praying to for Universal to take over. Which is pretty funny, but I'm thinking with that, I know the fast lane is a bit of an issue that I've been hearing a lot with that park, so maybe that could bring a change, but I'm not sure what that means for the lighting with Ferrari or the Liga. I guess those probably would be remained intact, but Universal in the park before, and I don't think they really injected much IP except for Woody Woodpecker or changed any of the areas, so I doubt they would now, except maybe adding relevant meet and greets and taking out. They own Sesame Street Asia, so they could keep Sesame Street for this park, but they could always just inject DreamWorks or Illumination IPs into the Sesame Street area instead. But they could do a Kung Fu Panda in the China area because it would fit without retheming Dragon Con or Shambhala purchasing there. And like the whole thing that they canceled concept art for Great America kind of remind me of like my old sort of like ideas for like Six Flags New Orleans, kind of working off what the Pie Company did with that. We can talk about that more off stream. I did drop a little bit earlier on, some thoughts earlier on, just in the main chat. If you want to look back at that later. But yeah, not much else. It's getting a little late now, but good talk. A lot of interesting stuff coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, there's definitely this. The whole reason I did a stream was because it's like, oh shoot, there's way more news than usual in January, and it's like, oh, there's just like too much for me to. I'm doing, and it came the week that I started college semester, so I'm like, okay, I'm just doing a stream then. But yeah, it is definitely really exciting. All the stuff we're sort of getting, all the stuff that's in the future, of course. And then yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of interesting things, and the whole PortAventura Universal thing. We'll see where that goes from here, but that definitely is something that intrigues me a lot to see where that goes.
Yep. But like the new Uncharted theme coaster, that could be very interesting. And at this time, I'm planning on going back to Spain in fall 2024 because that's when the first phase of the Line 11 extension, at least to Condé maybe a bit further to the northeast, for Madrid will reopen. Obviously, Gotham City Escape will be open by then. That's probably want to get to PortAventura.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so anything else you want to go into?
Not specifically, but more with the offseason, I've been focusing more on some like scripted stuff related to trains. So not just sort of like how much railroads are more thing throw in the chat, but some interesting thoughts. Like this month has been focusing on Madrid, celebrating like a year since my study abroad program. And next month will be more about my native septon, the Philadelphia. And then I do have a Baltimore DC one in the works release based on an older idea for a line between Six Flags America and Baltimore via Annapolis, just because it's kind of like near the Northeast corridor, but not really.
I have a friend who's pretty into like sort of the public transportation stuff. Yeah. He worked in an airport. He's been to Japan quite a bit, so he likes the bullet trains there. But he's interested in like sort of the transit around here too. Yeah. So
follow quite a few interesting people. I can send you their socials later on. Probably not tonight, tomorrow probably, if I remember.
Alrighty. So you want to plug your stuff in?
Yep. At history_leisure on Instagram, Twitter, and Mastodon. I know probably not many people have Mastodon, but I do. Not really using Mastodon. It's a little more complicated, but Instagram the most these days.
Alrighty, sounds good. And yeah, Mastodon, kind of interesting because that more sort of popped up recently, but hey, there you go. Alrighty, so I'll see you next time.
Night.
Alrighty, night. Alrighty, so huge thanks to History and Leisure for coming on. And thank you, Stanford Bridge, for the donation. Really appreciate that. Someone stumbling in late, but hello to all. I saw, I think Coaster Evan, did he come in? If anyone else wants to come in for viewer call-in, you can. But if not, I'll probably head into an end of stream Q&A. If anyone wants to come in, I have the link pinned at the top of the chat, and then also in a description. So for anyone who wants to come on, talk about the recent news topics, let let me know. Yeah, you were in. Are you planning to come on? Or no? Okay, yeah, because you just came in. All right, okay. So I think I'll go into final Q&A. I think that sounds good. Alrighty. That sounds good. For anyone who missed the news earlier, you can rewind after the stream's done. Actually, the description gives an okay idea of what you missed. But yeah, there you go. You need a decent amount of stuff now. But yeah, there you go. So end of stream Q&A. Ask me any questions you have, whether it relates to the news or whatever. Top pick for most anticipated coaster of 2023. Oh boy. I think Air Force One has to be the pick. It's a basic pick. Honestly, Toutatis and Gotham City Escape, I think that's what it's called, are definitely like really close, but definitely I still have to go with Air Force One. I just think the layout it has looks incredible. It looks like one of the best RMCs ever built. Not to say that the other two Intamin coasters don't look like some of the best Intamins ever built, because they certainly do, but Air Force One just looks a slight bit better, just a little bit. And I missed out on it because it didn't open this year. Nice. I was in the area. But I'll have to check it out at some point. But anyways, let's see. Most intriguing coaster to you. So if you're going off most anticipated coaster for me to ride, at this point, I would have to go with, man, it's tough. I think at this point, I would actually have to go with Ride to Happiness. I think I mostly had it as Edgenica. But I don't know. I mean, Ride to Happiness is just so unique. It looks so insane that I think it just has to be my most anticipated coaster. Just because it's just such a crazy coaster. You get crazy airtime while spinning. The elements look incredible. The inversions look great. I mean, it just looks fantastic. You're going to try to get on Toutatis this summer. Awesome. Which land in Epic Universe am I looking forward to the most? If Super Nintendo World wasn't coming to Hollywood, I would say that, but since it is, I'm going to exclude that one, just because I would say that's my most anticipated, just because that's like the sort of thing I'm most attached to. But my brother has a significant interest in the classic monsters. He kind of always has, and so I'm actually really curious to see what the classic monsters area ends up looking like. I think that would be my most anticipated one of the bunch. I'm also curious to see how the How to Train Your Dragon area looks like. I know that'll be more family oriented, but I think that could be really cool. And then you also have, man, I'm getting like a ton of text. I'm gonna have to check on that in a bit. But like Ministry of Magic should be interesting. The Harry Potter areas are always fantastic, so you can't go wrong there. And I'm trying to remember if I'm forgetting another one of the lands. Let me know if I missed one, because I don't have the best like sort of memory of each one. I know there's like the launch coaster, the dual launch coaster will be it like sort of its own little thing, but yeah, Classic Monsters has to be my favorite. Holy frick, it's crazy. What the heck is happening? Oh, okay. Let's see. Tomorrow you can ride any RMC you haven't before. Which one do I pick? That is a good question. That is actually harder to pick than you would expect. I'll exclude the upcoming ones. I will exclude Air Force One for this one. I don't know if that's the one I'd pick, but it certainly would be up there. I think if it was like, if I could ride any one, like, out of the bunch, excluding like location and how hard it is to get to, which one would I pick? I'd probably go with Iron Gwazi. I just think that's the one I'd have to pick. But if we're going off of like one that it's like, it's probably the most inaccessible to me in terms of trying to get, I'm going to have to pick Wildfire at Kilmartin, because that just seems like such a pain to get to. Just because it's like, so it seems pretty far from everything. I feel like most of the other ones I could feasibly travel to, but Wildfire is just kind of different. Let's see. Yeah, the How to Train Your Dragon area at Motion Gate Dubai. I've heard good things about that. No, there's a better chance I can get out to Nagashima because there's more avenues for me to get to Japan. I know it's kind of in a weird spot, but it's just, for me specifically, it would be easier. So that's why I went with Wildfire. If I'm trying to do one where it's going to be really difficult for me to get to. But if we're taking that out of the equation, Iron Gwazi would probably be tops, with Zadra and Hakuge would be definitely up there too. Let's see. Viking. We'll see about Viking. I know I probably should have just made a separate rumored closures thing for it, just because it was put up for sale. But I mean, you can look it up on the site. It is up for sale. Which doesn't always mean that a ride's going. Sometimes it like gets listed and they don't get sold, and so they just keep it. So, but that probably we'll see. It's kind of interesting also with Energylandia, because they're trying to beat out Magic Mountain for most coasters, and losing Viking would actually be pretty significant for them trying to beat that. I don't have no idea on Great America. It's very weird. I mean, it is a little flat ride, but I mean, that's just crazy that they're adding a new like little flat ride to me for a park that's closing. I mean, they're like Valley Fair. When was the last time they got a ride? Like, I mean, Valley Fair, Dorney Park, like, we're seriously giving Great America a new ride before those. Although I guess Dorney Park has that rumored, not rumored, leaked coaster that hopefully is still in the works. I really don't know. I still say probably yes. I think they're just giving them a ride, trying to see, like, get the most out of the park while they still can, and eventually they'll kind of, you know, when it gets closer to the lease being up, they'll start to close some things, relocate some things, and that's something that's probably pretty easily relocatable, so I think that's the situation, but it is still extremely strange. Iron Gwazi lives up to the hype. Yeah, it looks absolutely amazing. I mean, I can't say I expect it to be my number one coaster, because I don't, but it definitely looks like it's going to be absolutely incredible. So, yeah. What are some potential travel plans for me this year? So there's some things that sort of, there is one place that one thing I can pretty much guarantee at this point, and that is that I am doing Hollywood Nights, which would also mean I'm going to Kentucky Kingdom. I am going to Hollywood Nights this year, which is fantastic. First time going. I've already been to Holiday World, but I'm looking forward to that. And then Kentucky Kingdom will be a new park for me. So that is something that is for sure happening. Anything outside of California, I really have no idea. There's a lot of variables this year. And this may not be a year where I travel a whole lot. So But I am doing that, which is, you know what, pretty rare for me this time of year that I for sure know that something's happening. So I definitely am happy about that. Skyrush versus Phantom's Revenge. I'm a big fan of Skyrush, so I'm probably going to say Skyrush, but I haven't done Phantom, of course. So we'll see. Maybe Phantom is really just that special and I'll prefer it. I also need to re-ride Skyrush. It's been a while since I've ridden it, so that's something. Yeah, I've started to notice too, people, I don't know if it's like just running better this year or what the deal is, but yeah, more people are like getting on the Conda hype train, which is pretty interesting because it was like kind of a massive disappointment early on. It was like this coaster that people were hyping up as like potentially the best in the world and everything like that, and it just didn't really seem to live up to those expectations. But more recently, I've been hearing like people ranking it as like one of the best, if not the best coaster in Europe, and I guess in some cases their favorite coaster. I guess it's just running better. I mean, that's awesome to see. I mean, I was really high on it. I thought it was a coaster that had a phenomenal layout. I still do think in actual execution that like sort of non-inverted Cobra roll seems to take a lot away from the ride. As cool as it looks, I've heard it's just kind of a dud element and it takes a lot of momentum away. And I will say some of the hills looked a little more impressive in the animation than they ended up looking like in real life toward the end. But I mean, I still think it looks really good. And it's awesome to hear that it's starting to live up to expectations. You think Skyrush was running great in 2022? Yeah, I need to get out there. That would be awesome. I don't think it's happening this year because I usually, if there's a major new coaster, that's just not really a park I want to go to because in its opening year, because I just get worried a little bit that like there's going to be issues, especially if I'm like planning in advance and it's just like we have no idea what issues a coaster will have if it hasn't even opened yet. So I'm a little concerned about Wildcat's Revenge in that way. But we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. Yep, that seems to be about what I've heard. That it was like just not very good last year. And then the park was like closed for a lot of last year too, which kind of really messed up a lot of stuff. It kind of just had a pretty rough opening year, as did Wallaby Belgium last year. So I'm not surprised that it's more like this year. I'm just a little surprised how much more like it is this year. Do I think Wildcat's Revenge will be a top tier RMC or middle pack? I honestly think it'll probably be like, I don't think it's like truly middle of the road, but I feel like it'll be like a cut below the actual top tier, but it'll be like the higher middle tier. I think it's kind of hard to say because the layout is interesting. It's certainly different from some of the other conversions we've seen. I think it was kind of an interesting choice. They went with a step up underflip as the first big element instead of like say a large hill or something like that. And I did kind of wish, looking at it, that it had more like sort of off-axis hills. But it should still run really well. If the pacing is like super elite, then it'll probably be a top tier RMC, which I could certainly see happening. But I'm not like super in love with the layout, so I think it's probably more mid-tier. Do I have a favorite coaster to take pictures of? Honestly, I'm not much of a photography person. I mean, that very much becomes clear if you look at my Instagram. I'll still do it like occasionally, but for that reason, there's not really a coaster that I have like specifically. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a really good picture coaster to get pictures of. I will say that just given the surrounding area and everything, even though it's not like the actual coaster in specific, Furious Baco was a really good one for photo opportunities, as was Shambhala at PortAventura. So I'll say that for whatever that's worth. Let's see. All right, I think that's pretty much it. So I think I've gone through all the questions. And we're at about the 2-hour mark, which I think was actually my sort of goal, anyways, in terms of I wanted to get to like 2 hours or less for this type of stream. So I think we accomplished that, and it was a good time. So there we go. So I think that is pretty much going to wrap up the stream. Thanks to everyone who's watching, whether it's live or afterwards. And also, of course, to everyone who came on for the viewer call-ins. It was really cool to hear different insights and different pieces of news that I hadn't necessarily covered, like the water coaster going to Waldemere and the Diamondback repaint, which that'll certainly be interesting how that turns out. And so that was really fun, and it was a great time and great stream overall. So with that being said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time here on Coaster Hour.